Today in this lesson, we'll have a look at the very simple position involving two kings and a pawn. It looks really simple, but uh, it takes quite some practice and understanding of the basic concept of a position to be able to solve it. Now the challenge in White's hand is simple. It is that whether or not he is able to queen the pawn. If White is able to promote this pawn to a queen, he will be able to win the game using the queen to deliver a checkmate. And for Black, the challenge is to somehow stop the pawn. So when I give this position to the beginners, to someone who has not seen this position, the first response is to just push the pawn. And after some time, they just see the pawn has been captured and White has lost all his chances to win the game. So this is the first and most common mistake. And that brings us to the first lesson, that when the pawn goes ahead, it has to be supported by the king. And the second most important thing, in order to win the game, the white king should be in front of the pawn. So these are the two rules of winning this particular ending. Let us see what happens if we do not do that correctly. So let us say push the pawn. Now this is a bad move. I'll just tell you why. Because now, as we see, black has successfully blockaded the pawn, and if black plays correctly, white king will not get a chance to come in front of the pawn. Let us see how it goes. First, we'll look at the black's correct method of defense, and also uh, I will discuss some of the basic mistakes that can be made at this juncture. White can play this, black moves back, and people start playing this. I've seen a lot of people just going away. They are just afraid of the king and the pawn which are going forward. But in fact, there's nothing to be afraid. This position is a draw, and I'll just tell you how it is a draw. And I come here, pawn push. Now the key of defense is to stay in front of the pawn. That is really important to remember. Whenever you get a chance, stand in front of the pawn. That's a very important thing to remember. King goes here, and it is really important to remember, you should not go here, you should not go here, you should go straight back. And here is the concept of opposition, that from here, when the king goes straight back, it is waiting to oppose the white king when it comes forward. Now when the white king comes forward, now I'm opposing it, which basically means I'm not allowing the white king to come in front of the pawn, which is one of the basic requirements to win this ending. Let us see if we keep doing that, if black keeps defending correctly, how the game ends. White White is nothing better than moving the pawn forward. Again, I stay in front of the pawn. White is nothing better than this, and again I go straight back. And king comes here. I oppose the king, and finally white has to push the pawn. I stay in front of the pawn, and the game ends in a stalemate. So this is what happens when white pushes the pawn first and black maintains a position, stays in front of the pawn, stops the white king from coming forward, and finally the games end in a stalemate. We'll go back now to see what is the correct method of playing and winning the game. Always start with the king, and I go forward and I gain a position. Opposition, the concept of opposition is based on the simple thing that we see the kings are opposing each other, and if it is black's turn to play like it is now, it is said that white has the opposition. Essentially that means that the black king has to make a move, and that will allow the white an opportunity to come forward. Let us see how it goes. King comes here and I go forward. It is useless to go either here or here. You have to take a chance and go forward. The king comes here, give a check, and again I see a lot of beginners making this mistake of giving a check, and again the king occupies the vantage square, and the game becomes a draw because now the white king does not have the opportunity to go in front of the pawn. So here the best option for white is this. The king has to shepherd the pawn to the queening square. The king has to control the squares where the pawn will go. The pawn is small, cannot defend itself, and the king has to do that role. Goes here, I push the pawn, and if the king goes here, now the best move here is taking a position. This is called taking a position, which means we are asking black to move away and give us a chance to move forward. Black moves, I come here, and from here I control all the critical squares where the pawn will march forward in its quest to become a queen, and black cannot do anything about it. And promotion. So it is really important that the student practices this with his friends, with his colleagues, or against a computer. This is a very interesting position, and there are two main things to learn: how to promote the pawn to a queen by playing correctly, by bringing the king forward correctly and taking a position. And secondly, as black, as the defender, you have to learn that if white does not know the correct method of playing and happens to push the pawn first and allows you to block the pawn, how to make it a draw by creating a position and not allowing the white king to come in front of the pawn. This will require some practice. This will require uh, experience in actually trying this over the board, and I'm sure once you understand it, this ending will come in very handy, because this basic concept of opposition is the basis of most of the chess endings, and you'll see this quite often. Thank you.